Hi, this is Andy Hoffman of CryptoGoldCentral.com, the sound money blog of the 21st century, in which I write daily of my vision of the future of money, in which gold plays a passive role and Bitcoin is the center of the universe. Try my free 7-day trial membership and contact me anytime at ahoffman@CryptoGoldCentral.com to arrange cryptocurrency or precious metal consultations or get details on how to safely split Bitcoin forks. In today's one-on-one episode, the 24th, I'm pleased to finally have Giacomo Zucco as my guest. Giacomo, who can be found at Giacomo Zucco and at BHB Network, graces our airwaves from Italy. And aside from being one of the Bitcoin community's most knowledgeable commentators, is easily one of its most colorful. To that end, I'd like to welcome Giacomo, a self-proclaimed Bitcoin maximalist, unblockchain consultant, theoretical physicist, paleo-libertarian activist, and pseudo-nerd to One-on-One. Welcome, Giacomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody is right. Now, yesterday morning, I proclaimed it Bitcoin Bullishness Day, just before taping my all-out optimism fest with Adam Meister. The reason being my determination to avoid the negativity I experienced for so long in the precious metal sector, which is so completely unwarranted here, given how Bitcoin's fundamentals have never been stronger, at a time when this recent sector shakeout has left its price as perhaps its steepest ever discount to such fundamentals, which may be changing as I speak, as the odds are that yesterday morning's $5,970 print, representing the exactly $100 billion market cap level where the world's institutions are lying in wait, was, in my view, we'll see, the low. To that end, Giacomo, how do you view the current Bitcoin landscape in terms of actual on-the-ground progress regarding technology adoption and where things are headed over the course of 2018 in your most likely scenario?
Well, first of all, I'm a commentator and not a real developer. So what I see is basically what I can represent from the outside of the development community, trying to help and to help the development how I can. What I see is that right now the entire ecosystem from a technical point of view is getting to a point of consistency, clear direction. Every major drawback of the blockchain idea, which was a very, very cool idea. Satoshi's blockchain idea was cool because it was the first time we could do something trustless and permissionless about timestamping and proof of publication. But he had major, basically major flaws like unscalability and very, very little privacy. And every one of these concerns is finally being solved. Lightning Network is in production. It works. It's still unclear how much time we will take to have a good UX, high liquidity. There will be a lot of security concerns, a lot of security improvements to do, but it's there, it's working. And all the debate on the mailing list about Taproot or Mast or Graphroot, there are a lot of discussion going on about how to do everything from now on, scalable and private. What was basically the missing part of Bitcoin? Bitcoin demonstrated, Bitcoin proved that this kind of system can work, but it was still very, very unscalable and very, very unprivate. And many people say the same, but never been more bullish than now from the purely development point of view.
Well, how would you look at, you mentioned privacy, and I remember when I spoke to Charlie Lee a few months back, and he was saying, well, now that SegWit is in, the main goal is going to be scaling, but that afterwards we'd have privacy, anonymity, and however you want to describe it. Do you see that as something that's a future advancement, or something that, like, it seems like you're saying that with Lightning, it's kind of one and the same?
Yeah, Lightning already is a privacy improvement, even more so than a scalability improvement, because the main point about the main problem of the blockchain design itself, is that every single node has to keep and to store every other people transaction forever. So you have information that are everywhere and forever. And so the main problems, the main challenges to solve these are to basically to have sharding, so not everybody has to keep everything, and pruning, so you don't have to keep everything forever. If you purchase a coffee, you don't want all the world to process your coffee purchasing. You don't want to store it and to validate it forever. And so Lightning Network can do both things, because people will not have to validate every other people transaction, but just a transaction incoming and passing on their node as a routing or as a direct payment, and they will be able to throw away all the old proofs. So basically, you will not have to store forever, and you will not have to store everywhere. And this is real scalability, but most of all, this is real privacy. With the adding of Tor routing, which is already what is used in order to do routing inside of Lightning Network, every node will just know where the payment is coming from on one hop distance, and where is going to one hop distance, but it will never be able to tell where is the payment being generated and where is the payment going as a finality. So basically, from the outside, what we see is the topology of the network, and we don't know which kind of payment is going on inside. And when with the rebalancing, what we will see when the channel will be closed will be probably they open half and half, and they will close half and half normally. So it's a huge privacy improvement. Of course, this privacy improvement is not free. It comes at a cost. Basically, user will have to learn new methods to store partial proof. One of the cool things about the blockchain is that since everybody is storing your stuff, you don't have to backup anything except your mnemonic. So you backup that, and then the network will take care of everything else. With Lightning, you actually do have to keep secure and private your partial transactions, which is it's doable, definitely, but it is a challenge of UX and of security for sure. So Lightning Network already is a privacy improvement. Of course, it also depends from the topology of the network. If every node is connected with the same hub and is transacting with the same central hub, then this central hub will likely see all the origination and all the arrivals of the funds. But if we assume a distributed enough topology, then we have a huge privacy increase.
Well, and let me ask you, because obviously you know a lot about this, and everyone could see right behind you, it says Blockchain Labs, and you were telling me beforehand that it's kind of like you're a nonprofit business bringing together Bitcoin developers. So I think it would really help everyone understand, where you're getting the basis of all this knowledge. Is it your personal development, or are you with all the people that you're working with? Like, what exactly are you doing over there, and how is it helping you learn?
So yeah, the main purpose of this whole operation was to create a structure, an open source, no-profit structure that could help and boost and coordinate the Bitcoin development. So the main goal is help the ecosystem, and that's BHB network, let's say, structure. And then on top of that, in order to maintain all this structure, we also created a for-profit consultancy brand, which is a Blockchain Lab. And basically, the consultancy brand goes to financial incumbents, so banks, insurances, other consultancies, and we basically teach them how to filter out all the, technically speaking, bullshit out there. So we basically 90% of our job is to explain how people do not need any blockchain stuff at all. But then there is also part of our job which consists to explain function of timestamping, notarization, secure storage, maybe even payment channels, and so on. So yeah, we basically what we learn, we don't produce knowledge. We extract knowledge from all the people that we help, and in exchange we try to do our best to help the ecosystem going on developing. So when I talk about Lightning Network is because I usually interact with people working on this stuff. We have two guys here in the lab right now that created one graphic UX interface for Blockstream C Lightning, and they also spent some months in order to check interoperability between Blockstream and Lightning Labs, Lightning Network Daemon, and Declare, and so on. So there is a lot of interesting people here, and I am lucky enough to talk with them a lot, and so
Right.
that's why I can repeat some smart
Right.
things.
Well, and here at the World Crypto Network, I mean, we're all learning every day. I do some very simple type of consulting where I kind of help people with Trezor setups, that kind of stuff. And then I speak to people like Rocky Palumbo, who helps people with wallet issues. Then there's Francis Pouliot, who actually has a majorly funded consultancy firm that does some very complex things. And you're doing the same kind of things over in Europe. So
Actually,
again,
we're
yes.
trying to do things together, me and Francis. So Catalyx is a model which is very, very similar to Blockchain Lab, and we are trying to coordinate since a couple of years in order to do things together in the BHP part. So he's contributing to the Open Timestamps work along with Eternity World team and everybody. And the idea is very similar to what Francis is doing.
Right. And again, to everyone listening, if you do have questions of any kind, it could be low-level questions like Trezor setups, all the way to the kind of things that Francis and Giacomo are doing. Please contact us over here, and we will put you in touch with people who can help you. And also remember all those local meetups in all the different cities around the world. That's the best possible place to find people to network with for whatever you're trying to do to advance your career or solve problems. And next, let me just go back to the beginning of that question. Of my first question was, what is your most, if you had a most likely scenario for, how do you think the Bitcoin world is going to play out? And I'm not saying like, what's the price going to be? I mean, what do you think we're going to see in the Bitcoin world in the coming 12 months or 11 months?
So, of course, it's very uncertain. It's very difficult to predict anything in this ecosystem. It's never boring. Let's say there is always drama, always news. But what I think we will see will be the consolidation of the mainnet Lightning Network. So people will actually start to use Bitcoin a lot for micropayments. There was a lot of excitement about Bitcoin at first for micropayments online, but this excitement was frustrated by the fact that Bitcoin itself on chain is not suited for instant payments or for micropayment, because even when it was when nobody was using Bitcoin, still to pay 20 cents or to wait for 20 minutes is not an instant micropayment experience. So Lightning for the first time can enable that, and that can actually put in place a lot of use cases that were imagined and waited a lot, but they are now possible in production. Also, Segwit itself, solving the malleability problem, will actually enable a lot of more complex smart contracts like all or nothing crowdfunding, more complex escrows that were imagined maybe in 2012, 2013 as cool features.
Is that smart contracts the way you're describing it?
Yeah. Bitcoin already has smart contracts. Like a payment channel is already a smart contract, and a multi-sig wallet is already a smart contract, and an unlock time is already a smart contract. But the transaction malleability problem was a limitation for more complex smart contract, because it created security issues. With Segwit, we solved the malleability, external malleability problem. And with this solution, you can actually start to play with more complex, hopefully not as complex as Ethereum bullshit, but complex enough to be interesting for some kind of business application. So I think that consolidation of Lightning, more advanced in smart contract, and then I think we will see the beginning of the great debate, and maybe another civil war and another drama about script privacy upgrades. So Schnorr signature, must, taproot, and scriptless script, and all these other cool stuff that require a change in the script language of Bitcoin. So another soft fork. I think that this time the community will be smart enough to not depend of miners' activation. But we will see. I think that some drama will rise for this kind of stuff. Then I think we will see finally the financial. We will continue to see a progressive adoption by institutional investors. So we will see future markets adopting Bitcoin. I think in 2018 we will see the first ETF. We are already seeing a lot of Swiss banks offering Bitcoin bank accounts, Bitcoin accounts to funds and to private retail investors. And I think that in 2018 we will see a lot of this offering. So right now Bitcoin was mostly as a tool and as an investment for let's say hobbyists and committed people, passionate people. Right now I think that Bitcoin users will continue to be of the same kind, but Bitcoin investors will differentiate to be more different, and probably a lot of institutional people and institutional organization will start to accumulate this asset because it is a decorrelated asset, except for the last 2 days in which it went down together with the stock market, but that's very, very uncommon. Usually Bitcoin shows a nice level of decorrelation. So adoption by institutional investor, and well, I hope that in 2018 we will start to see an Armageddon of scam coins and scam projects and scam ICOs. I'm skeptical. I think that maybe it's too soon because I don't know. Let's see now. Now Bitcoin is just recovering from the usual yearly correction, step correction, and is recovering. Let's see if all the scam projects will recover at the same pace. If it will happen, then we will need probably another year or two in order to have the crypto Armageddon and to have the end of the .com bubble, when people start to differentiate between pet.com and Amazon. Right now, everything is the same. Amazon and pet.com are going up. Then we will follow together. We need a moment in which pet.com slowly goes to die finally, and Amazon.com can start to go to the moon.
Well, I have to congratulate you, Giacomo. You not only just broke a record for this podcast, but you shattered the record. The record, of course, that I'm talking about is the most notes that I've taken from one single response. It was held by Simon Dixon. Second place was Simon Dixon, and third place was Simon Dixon. And you just took over first place because that was a wealth of information that just came out in that one response. And I'm just going to address some of the things you said. First of all, again, I was tweeting about it this morning about the Lightning Network, about how amazing it is. You're talking about how it's going to enable micropayments, but also privacy. But more importantly than all that, it's going to increase the speed and efficiency of the Bitcoin network and legitimize it and have people start to think of what it can compete with, aside from being just, quote, digital gold, because that's, to me, the game changer of the year is the value that's going to be created on the network when people realize how much more efficient it gets. And like you said, it'll take some time, but clearly that time is a lot faster than people thought, because we're already way ahead of any pace that anyone could have imagined or really even within the industry thought could happen. Then again, you mentioned all the smart contracts that are inherent in all these things that are going on. And I just want to emphasize again that, Bitcoin is not, quote, competing with Ethereum, but the fact is that anything Ethereum does, Bitcoin will be able to do. And that's why there's going to be, like in court, you have the burden of proof on you. Well, Ethereum's going to have the burden of maintaining its network effect in a competitive environment. And we'll see what happens going forward. Of course, Bitcoin really doesn't care, because as digital gold, it can be worth $10 trillion one day without doing a single smart contract. And of course, it already is doing them. And then you mentioned the stock market as a factor. And I've been, obviously my background in finance, this is something that I've been focusing on heavily, especially in the past week. And, for a second there, it looked like it was almost moving with the market until we saw the other day, the price of Bitcoin was getting crushed. And then it suddenly surged when the Dow plunged. And then, of course, overnight tonight, Bitcoin is surging. The Dow is going down. So the point is, it just was a coincidence that the Dow started falling in stocks when Bitcoin and crypto happened to be in the middle of their correction in January, as you say, as it always is. So I think we're back to being that uncorrelated asset that really doesn't care, but certainly takes its cues from negative aspects of the legacy market, like printing money and central banks doing stupid things. And you also mentioned ETFs, which we all know is lurking in the background. And as soon as the price gets back up again, just like futures, the ETFs will be back on the table. We saw the CFTC yesterday, and the SEC absolutely have no issues at all with crypto right now, so that's not a regulatory issue. And then you're talking about Swiss bank accounts. Hey, central banks are going to be a big issue too. I think that I think the Bank of Switzerland and Japan were big buyers this week, and that's going to be probably an issue in 2019. We start to understand, but all these things you're talking about, and of course the scam coins. Will the pets.com versus amazon.com thing become a real issue this year, or are we still? I agree with you. I think as soon as the market goes up, everyone will go right back to buying Cardano and Tron and them and be indiscriminate about it. But in the back of their mind, they will realize, I am buying something that really doesn't do anything. I better be careful, because if there's another correction, people are going to realize that Bitcoin actually does stuff and everything else doesn't. And then lastly, I want to just ask you one more time, because everyone's so excited about Schnorr signatures and some of these other second layer technologies. You just addressed it for the first time as a potential drama, not a hard fork drama, thank God, but this is the first time I've heard of it. So I'd like you to just clarify what you think people will have a problem with, who will be fighting.
So Segwit, for example, was of course a major change in Bitcoin functioning. So of course it was addressed with caution and with years of study and experimentation and debate. But then the people, the developers and technological experts, they actually came to agreement about Segwit. So everything on GitHub was hacked. So everybody was acknowledging the change. There were no anymore any technical doubt. But when the Segwit activation was basically submitted to miners in order to signal their readiness, so BIP9, so the miner signaling Segwit, was not a vote in order to decide if to activate or not Segwit. It was a mechanism of safety that was something like this. We agreed about Segwit because the technical issues have been all addressed. Now that we all agreed about Segwit, in order to activate it, we want to be sure that the miners will enforce it and knows they are prepared in order to follow the new rules without splitting the network. So this signaling mechanism, this technical safety signaling mechanism was changed to be a political poll, which was not intended to be. So people without any kind of opinion about the technology started to fight the technology for political reasons, for power struggles. And then people came over with frauds and false theories about Segwit being patented by Blockstream, or Segwit being unsecure, or Segwit being over complex with the soft fork. So a lot of FUD was created around Segwit in order to the activation as a political battle, and sometimes as a financial tool, because you remember like miners on Litecoin signaling Segwit, so then shorting the market, stop signaling Segwit altogether, then the price of Litecoin plunges, and they signal again and they activate it. So a lot of front running, a lot of insider trading, using the technology improvement as a tool. So what we are doing right now with Schnorr and Mast is something which is, as you said, second layer, but it requires some soft forks, so some consensus moves in order to adopt the new versioning of the script or new opcodes. So there will be some soft forks required for Schnorr and for Mast and Taproot, etc. And I think that it could be possible that even these technological upgrades, even if they are not even when they will not be contentious anymore for developers and knowledgeable people, they could be portrayed as contentious by external entities in order to serve some political agenda or economical agenda.
You mean like Roger Ver trying to use it to say, look, Bitcoin has all of these problems that we don't have. Of course, they don't have problems because they don't do anything. But you're talking about people with agendas to hurt Bitcoin will use a pretty simple technological change as a political tool.
Yeah, exactly. Like FUD, like Schnorr is maybe some. It's not just people trying to hurt Bitcoin. Often it's just people trying to get visibility from trying to be contrarian and it's also people trying to profit from fear in the market. So, for example, I think that often when miners played with SegWit activation, I don't think that the main goal was to hurt Bitcoin directly. I think that I could be wrong, but probably the goal was also to profit from market manipulation with yes we do, no we don't, no we split, we don't split. So every time there is a consensus change, there could be some drama, and if there is not natural drama, I think that there could be some external exogenous inoculated drama. But maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm
No,
wrong.
you are 1,000. In fact, you just hit the, the whole thing that we went through the last 2 years, which was pretty horrible for everyone to go through because there were so many moments of fear. Because again, everything was uncertain. Was everything that we saw last year. You can say what you will about, people believe that Roger Ver wanted a new Bitcoin or Jian Wu wanted this and that. It's all about money. And in the very, very tiny, we're talking about, like, let's say we talk about the height of the Bitcoin scaling debate. Let's say, I would say March, the Bitcoin Unlimited, June, the universal activated hard fork that Bitmain proposed. I mean, these were like the scariest points. But the market cap of Bitcoin at the time was what, like $20 billion? And we're talking about, it was tiny. It was illiquid. It's unregulated. Most of the trading activity comes from like China, where people have no freaking idea what's going on all these shady exchanges. So market manipulation was the #1 reason for doing things. There's no, I mean, very well, like you look at the Bcash plus Coinbase plus all that stuff. They knew that the market price was going to move and they were prepared for it. And then, of course, you have ASICs boost, which has been a major reason why Bitmain resisted SegWit. It has nothing to do with the technology. They profited from it, so they fought it for their own good. The good thing about the network becoming much bigger with institutional players and more miners from around the world is that dilutes, you go from being a big fish in a small pond to being a small fish in a big pond. And I think that's going to be one of the themes going forward. So you hit that right on the head. And I'll just move on.
I think that it is possible that some political move was also in place. Like there are theories speaking about the Chinese government not being very happy about the fungibility on Bitcoin because of capital flight implications. So the Chinese government somehow implicated into fighting SegWit directly because SegWit does enable fungibility features. But I think that's possible. But I think that there are, for now, the Occam razor is for very, very shallow motivation, like you said, Coinbase doing insider trading with
CNBC.
yes, CNBC or ASICs boost profits, or even just Roger Ver getting out of irrelevance because first it was relevant as Bitcoin Jesus, then it was not relevant anymore because who cares? And now
he's Bitcoin Cash Jesus now.
Bcash, Holy Father. Cash like God and Trinity. So it's more than Jesus. Here he has is omnipotent.
Yes.
On Bitcoin, he was just a rich guy. On Bcash, he is basically God.
He's God. Right. Well, it's going to be the God of a dying civilization. But also, you bring up the China, and again, I had forgotten so much. Things go so quickly. I had forgotten there was plenty of talk back then that the Chinese government were part of all of that. That in fact, the Chinese government may well have been in league with Bitmain, not like for price manipulation, because they thought that the two of them combined with maybe Roger Ver had the ability, and John McAfee, you throw in the fake Satoshi, some big players, and see if you can commandeer Bitcoin and have sweet deals with mining. And look, if you do something for the Chinese government, you become one of the richest people in the world. There's no doubt that those things could have been in play, but the beauty of it is they lost because the Bitcoin network is bigger than China. It's bigger than everybody. And we certainly learned that last year. Now, I'll just go right into the next question. It's a broad question. I think I know the answer, but I think people would like to know how you answer it. And that is, look, we just had this big collapse, which, as you mentioned, and I've mentioned many times before, it's January. It happens every January. It doesn't matter the reason. For some reason, it happens in January. And, a lot of people got wrecked. Most of them were the latecomers, the speculators who come in at the end who didn't know what they were doing. Look, to you, Is there anything going on here about this crash that's out of the ordinary as far as fundamentals? Did something change that's going to make it difficult for crypto to recover or for altcoins to recover? Or is it just run of the mill and we're going to look up a few months from now and be challenging the highs again?
Very difficult question, of course. I don't know. That's the basic answer. And I am a terrible trader, so never trade on what I say.
Well, I'm not talking about, let's forget the price. I'm sorry if I made it look like I'm talking about the price. I'm talking about Bitcoin. Did something happen that, oh my God, it's down 70%. Bitcoin is not what we thought it to be. Or is it just stuff, trading?
No, I think it's just a normal periodic correction. What maybe could have changed is right now the presence and existence of the future markets. Even if I'm not really convinced because they are so small, they're probably irrelevant. But for the first time, we are seeing a market correction in the presence of advanced and regulated and somehow liquid future markets. So this could somehow make it, I don't know, but then I don't know the output. It could make it harder to recover or even easier to recover on the other hand. I think that what this crash means is that I and other commentators were wrong about one thing. I thought that beginning of 2018 was the moment in which many institutional hedge funds would have started to allocate something like, I don't know, 1% or 2% of their asset allocation on Bitcoin. But I think that the crash is indicated that is not happening yet, at least not at a major pace. Yeah, I think one fundamental lesson we could get from this is institutional funds are not yet allocating are not yet reallocating heavily on Bitcoin hedging. Let's say that's the only implication I could try to extract from the crash.
Well, yeah, I mean the thing with the futures, and everyone's talked about this ad nauseum, and I happen, especially as a Wall Street person, that's my background, to agree that there was a lot of FOMO going into the futures markets. It's kind of like this legitimized it, the whole world's going to come in. And on top of that, I was talking about that wall of money that Brian Kelly mentioned in November. I was talking about that in October because I worked at hedge funds. I know that the vast majority start on January 1st. I knew that we hit $6,000, i.e., a $100 billion market cap right near the end of the year, and that all these hedge funds, such as like Mike Novogratz's, which he delayed, but they were all going to come January 1st, and the futures were December 20th. So there was a lot of speculation that went into that. And then, of course, when it happened, I believe that what we saw the first week of January was what you're talking about. They came in with a fury. I mean, they took Bitcoin from 13 back up to 17. They took altcoins into the stratosphere. But what happened was there's too much speculation, and we went right back down. So I agree with you that nothing you lose pain. And I'm having an echo, so I'm going to go back to you.
Oh, wait, maybe I will mute for a second.
Oh, is that what it was? Yes, that's what it was. Okay, yes. So we had a speculative bubble that had really nothing to do with whether there was a futures market or not. That just contributed to it. And so, we're shaking it out. The big question will be, I'll ask next about altcoins, how we're going to recover. But I will mention one thing about the futures markets that people need to realize when they think it's this big giant entity that's manipulating prices and all this stuff. Right now, the futures markets are tiny. I mean, it's a very small amount of volume compared to the overall size of the Bitcoin market. It's nothing like, say, gold or oil or copper, where you have tremendous amounts of futures trading that can be the tail wagging the dog. Here, they are very small. Like you said, you're saying institutions are just getting started. Futures have only been trading for a month, and a lot of people have already gotten wrecked in that month. So there's not that much money in them just yet. So give it time. And to that matter, I'll go on to the next question. Altcoins, you mentioned the whole pets.com and Amazon thing. My question is, we had last year this game-changing events like SegWit and the failure of the Bcash and SegWit 2x usurpation attempts. All these things did not happen last year for the altcoins. But going forward, it looks like everyone thinks that all the altcoins can piggyback off of Bitcoin's success and all be valuable. Do you think that the altcoin sector is inherently has become more valuable simply because Bitcoin is doing better, or is it just pure speculation that is going to turn them into pets.coms?
I think it's mostly speculation and partly, let's say, informational asymmetry and cognitive asymmetry. So people do not know this ecosystem. They don't know what they are doing. They think that cryptos are product, while cryptos are protocol, as much in the technological sense and also in the monetary sense. So money is a protocol, like a language. And when if on products, what the market settles for is a lot of competition and a lot of fast evolution and disruption in base protocols like languages, network technologies, infrastructures, and money. The tendency of the market is to go toward unification and stability. So Bitcoin is something unified and stable, and it doesn't need a lot of fast evolution, disruption, and competition. Actually, money doesn't like competition, and when the best kind of money tends to replace all the others kind of money. If these digital tokens really represented like shares of company, so maybe illegal crypto shares in the dark net, that will make a case for them to exist. So you have money, but on top of that, you have stocks, you have futures, you have a specific contract, smart properties. So these kind of coins could exist in the long run together with Bitcoin. But you don't need 200 different kinds of digital gold. Actually, when all the world was using gold and gold enough, you didn't even need silver itself. We used silver only because gold was very, very difficult to divide in small pieces. So in order to go around without gold powder, you need silver as another standard. But if you have a perfectly divisible gold, you don't need silver and you don't need any other kind of money. So I don't think that there is any kind of I don't think there is any kind of intrinsic value in all this altcoin experimentation. In some cases, like Monero or maybe Green, so Mimblewimble, or Sia coin, you have some kind of legit infrastructure experimentation that for some technical reason, it wasn't yet possible to do with Bitcoin. So the best way to do infrastructural experimentation is to use Bitcoin on top of this new infrastructure, like with Lightning. But for some application, is not yet very easy. And for this reason, people is starting to create altcoins. But I think that with sidechain, very, very easily, it will change.
Yeah, I would agree. And again, you're more technical than me, but to me, it really has aspects of the .com era where there's very little that was incrementally created aside from, quote, the internet itself that was valuable. There was some core, I mean, the internet's a little different because you do have things like search engines, you do have retail sales, but Bitcoin is just, it's a protocol that none of these others can replicate. They're not protocols. They are just kind of trying to piggyback on the technology and mostly on the speculative mania, because some of them, if you hold some of them, you may well have some of the biggest winners of the whole cryptocurrency era. But it's not going to be because they're competing with Bitcoin. It's going to be they have to have a very, very valid use case and one that's viable that cannot be subsumed. So again, we don't know when that point is going to be, when the market becomes more discerning. Right now, I think it's going to take some time simply because all this institutional money doesn't have many choices. And so they will look to diversify. But I think you're absolutely right that going forward, again, the burden of proof is going to be on altcoins to prove their worth. And when you're going up against this 700-pound gorilla, it's pretty hard to do that. And you mentioned about gold and silver, which obviously that's my background. And yes, you're right. Silver was not used. Silver is only really necessary as a poor man's gold because it was more divisible. Of course, in the real world, it's not really that divisible at all. But right now, I think because of Bitcoin, gold and silver aren't going to be needed in the future. Gold will have a little more shelf life because it's been around a long time as the wealth of the gentleman, and you can obviously store a lot more of it because it's a lot more valuable. But we are heading into a digital world where particularly the millennials and the Gen Zs and beyond are not going to care about physical items as much as digital ones. Now, next I wanted to
possibly gold could just remain as a ultimate edge against the total technological collapse. So given that Bitcoin could actually survive even after the internet is taken down. So there are chances that Bitcoin could survive the internet. But if you really want an edge against total apocalypse, maybe gold and bullets could be a
right. And yeah, and again, I was the biggest gold person in the world now, but I now, like in my blog, I wrote an article a month ago that I said, I've said silver is worthless. I said big value in small packages. Silver is no longer a monetary metal, and everyone hates me for it, but it's true. Gold to me has been relegated to a inflation-adjusted savings account with little downside at all because there's no mining industry that's been destroyed, and of course a call option on crisis. If we have a major crisis, Bitcoin will be the big winner. Gold will be a big winner too, but not as much. Next, we're going to move on to the acronym that we all, well, I wrote love, but I meant hate to hear, which in Bitcoin has been a part of our life, is FUD. And not surprisingly, during this enormous but seasonally typical correction. At this time around, unlike all recent trips down the Bitcoin roller coaster, no single news item really can be blamed. I mean, yes, South Korea got some press, but the ban the FUDsters bandied about never happened and probably never was going to happen. Similarly, India and China, neither of which was particularly innocuous to start with. And yesterday's Senate Banking Committee hearing, which actually was quite bullish. Like the CFTC guy, he couldn't have been more. It almost seems like he's a Bitcoin fan. And so I'm, Giacomo, am I missing something? I mean, what FUD is out there that you're worried about or that the market is not understanding yet? Is there something that we're all missing here?
No, I don't perceive a lot of FUD in this moment, actually. Maybe, I don't know, it's strange because there is no news that could actually threaten anything. Yeah, the Visa move about the credit cards and some new ban false ban in South Korea, false intermittent ban in China, but it's all the usual stuff. So I don't see anything new, actually. It's probably just like an excess of expectations that are now renormalized to reality. So it was like a reality check after a super hype in the last autumn.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I look at it, I've been saying that this is the biggest correction I've ever seen in any market where there's actually nothing wrong. And yes, I understand there was a big speculative mania, particularly, to me, it was altcoins that created this. The speculation in altcoins, kind of took the whole sector down. But look, Bitcoin went, quadrupled in a month's time. So, but it's not, yeah, go on.
ICOs as well. We had basically a year of new project accumulating with expectation, science fiction plans and purposes, and then there is reality hitting back. Nothing has been done. There could also be some kind of long-run effect of the disillusionment about blockchain technologies. So it was all about the blockchain, but actually after 1,000 proof of concepts, nothing is happening in the blockchain world. So this other fake Bitcoin stuff could actually influence the real Bitcoin itself.
Right. And of course, in many ways, that whole blockchain thing was, well, two things. One, it was an attempt by people in the mainstream to profit off of the success of Bitcoin by claiming they were somehow part of it, knowing that as Adam Meister would call them, the 80%ers don't understand that blockchain is kind of an ambiguous statement. Bitcoin is the blockchain. And so a lot of these other things that even JP Morgan and the big banks are into really are just, simple intranet, ERP projects, whatever that term is, that have nothing to do with what the true meaning of the decentralized network protocol is. So, yeah, I mean, to me, this was the correction, the biggest correction we've ever seen based on absolutely nothing fundamental. And that's why I think that we are in for a very rapid rebound. Because people have, again, we bottomed. I mentioned this morning. We bottomed at exactly $100 billion market cap. That is where the institutions are all lying in wait, people. There's no doubt. When you see the fact that 5970 on Bitstamp is $100.1 billion, that is the wall of money that Giacomo's talking about, that I was talking about, Brian Kelly's talking about. All these hedge funds are set up right now. They're all there. Mike Novogratz, he's going to start his hedge fund any day now. I mean, he said the worst case is 8,000. Well, we're at 8,000. He had about 15 or 20,000 Twitter followers 2 months ago. He has 75,000 now. There's a lot of people in the institutional world that are looking for this to happen, and it's happening. So just wait, when everyone realizes, wait, there's absolutely nothing wrong with Bitcoin. Actually, the legacy market system is where all the problems are right now. They're looking at gold, by the way, and saying, look at this. We had this crisis. Gold didn't do anything. Bitcoin is the only game in town going forward. So I think it's a really exciting 2018 coming up. If you have any final comments about what you're doing at Blockchain Labs or what you think is going to happen, let us know now or forever hold your peace.
So I'm very sorry, but I had to run away. I didn't.
Final thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. No, final thoughts. I think that in the first half of this year, many of the hypotheses we just elaborated will have confirmation. I mean, Lightning is here. We will now see how it works, how it decentralizes or creates hubs or whatever. I think that about the price, if this is just yet another correction, or if it is something more fundamental, we will see in very few. And also from the regulatory point of view, regulators cannot continue to go to do and undo bans. They have to actually do bans or not. So the approach of the regulators about Bitcoin, but also about scam ICOs, will be something that will have to be established in the next months. So I think it will be very interesting to do another a check over the predictions of this interview in 3 to 6 months.
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely going to have you back. We're going to finish right here. Again, this was Giacomo Zucco, who can be found at Giacomo Zucco on Twitter, also at BHB, that's Boy Harry Boy Network. That's his company, Blockchain Labs, out in Milan. As for me, please try a free 7-day subscription at cryptogoldcentral.com or contact me at ahoffman@cryptogoldcentral.com if you have any questions about consulting or coin splitting. Thanks again, Giacomo. Thanks to the audience, and have a great crypto day.